And isn't this a beautiful church?
Yes.
This space has always meant a lot to me. It's so sweet. Oh, I wish that organ was played.
Oh.
It would be wonderful to hear that. As Dennis told you, I'm going to be talking to you about prayer. And what inspired me, well, one thing is that I absolutely adore religious science, my faith tradition. I adore this tool that we have called spiritual mind treatment, or now we call it affirmative prayer. And I've used it for over 30 years in not only my own life, but in many other people's lives, and seen just wonderful demonstrations from using it. And then the other day I'm riding in the car and I heard an NPR show about how prayer can sculpt your brain or reshape your brain. And I thought, wow, science is finally proving something that religious science has known for many, many, many years. But then I started looking at prayer, and I looked at some of the major religions, their ideas about prayer. So the first one I looked at was the Muslim faith. The Muslim faith prays 5 times a day, and there's specific things that they have to say, specific ways that they have to do it, specific cleanliness that needs to be in the area and in their body before they do it, etc. And I thought, boy, there's a lot of rules there. You know, prayer is considered the second pillar of Islam, so it's very important to them. And I remember being in Turkey. In fact, when we were on the cruise, Jane and I were on a cruise, and we got to Istanbul, and there's this beautiful, beautiful temple there. And suddenly we could hear all of the imams, or whatever they call them, I believe that's what they call them, starting the call to prayer, the first morning call to prayer. We're on our little balcony, you know, enjoying the beautiful morning, and suddenly this wonderful prayer just starts rising up, and it was so amazing. And I thought, this is a good thing. You know, so many people have prayer in the closet, and yet when you go to other countries, it's not. When I look at the Jewish tradition, I realize that prayer isn't something that just happens in the synagogue once a week. In fact, they too have a regulated prayer program in their lives every single day. Even before they get out of bed in the morning, they are thanking God for having another day. Before they wash their hands, before they prepare food, many, many times during the day there are specific prayers to recite all the way through going to bed. And these prayers are in addition to the ones that they would have at the prayer services, as well as on the high holy days. So then I looked at the Hindu religion. And I remember being in India and we got to eat in a person's home, and walking into their home, and there was an area almost immediately inside the front door that they called their puja. And there was a statue of Ganesh, and it had, you know, the elephant god. That's the god of prosperity and good fortune for the family and the home. And here's the statue, and then here's an orange and a bowl of rice and some other things, and lots of flowers and incense. And, you know, they walk in the house and they honor this area, and then they walk into the rest of their home. And then when I thought about prayers in the Hindu tradition, their prayers are more chants. They have a lot of chants for a lot of things. And I love chanting. And in fact, you might see people with the 108 beads on the string called a mala. And I've learned how to use that for my own self. For Buddhists, the prayer is also considered a really important part of their spiritual journey. And what they believe prayer does is transform confusion into clarity and suffering into joy. I thought, ooh, this is a good thing, right? And their prayers can be done anytime, anywhere, and they bring about a really deep spiritual connection. The one thing that I noticed about these traditions that I've just mentioned is that the prayers are prayers that they learned by memorization. They're not spontaneous prayers. Now you move into the Christian tradition, and prayer is also a very important activity. In fact, in the book of Luke in the Bible, this is where they talk about Jesus doing prayer a lot and how important it is to him. And one of the things that I loved about Jesus is he seemed to pray before doing anything. In fact, the one prayer that made the most impression on me as I was reading the Bible over the years, I've never read the whole thing, but the New Testament I have, but they've called him because his friend Lazarus has died, and so he's going to the tomb, and he stands outside the tomb and says, "Father, thank you for hearing me. Lazarus, come forth." And I love that because he started out with gratitude. And what a short and simple prayer. A prayer said with an amount of authority instead of the begging or supplicating type of prayers that you hear so much. So then, of course, my faith tradition is religious science. And Dr. Holmes, the founder of religious science, says, "No class of people on earth believe more in prayer than we do. Our whole theory is based not only on the belief in spirit, but the availability of it, its immediate response. We even go so far as to say in everyday language, pray right, and God cannot help responding. This is as far as anyone can go in faith. There is no confusion in the approach to reality. It should be calm and dispassionate, but filled with feeling, because feeling and emotion are creative. We should combine the letter and the spirit of the law. Feeling and emotion are creative." That's an important thing to remember. Now, to go on to the NPR thing that I was listening to, they were saying that 90% of Americans believe in prayer. 90% of Americans. And they pray for their health, they pray for their wealth, they pray for their final exams, they pray for the right and perfect mate. We pray for everything. But they asked in this program, does prayer do any good? So they've started looking at science. And for years now, for decades, scientists have tried to test the power of prayer and positive thinking with mixed results. Now some scientists are fording new and what they're calling controversial territory. They're making attempts to understand the spiritual experience. I don't know how they can do that because each spiritual experience is so unique and individualized. But what they're looking at is what's happening in the minds and the bodies of people who say they have a deep connection with the divine. For instance, they have studied people who have prayed and meditated for 1 or 2 or more hours a day. And they've begun to feel that their studies are offering some clues to how the brain works, especially in believers. This field is called neurotheology. Isn't that neat? Neurotheology. And although it's new, it's really drawing prominent researchers in the US and in Canada. One of them being a man by the name of Newberg. He is turning his attention not so much now to monks and people who have made their life passion meditation and prayer, but to everyday average people. And he's also working with a neuroscientist named Richard Davidson. And he says you can change your brain with experience and training. You can change your brain. He says this is called neuroplasticity. For years, Davidson, who is at the University of Washington, has scanned the brains of Buddhist monks who have logged in years of meditation. When it comes to things like attention and compassion, their brains are as finely tuned as a late model Porsche. Davidson wondered, Could ordinary people achieve the same kind of connection with the spiritual that the monks do without so much effort? I think that's one thing that prevents many people from having a practice of meditation or prayer, is, well, I don't have the time, it takes too long, maybe I'm not doing it right, we don't see instantaneous results, etc. So he's looking at it as being able to do it without much effort. And he found that there were detectable changes in the subject's brains within 2 weeks.
Wow.
2 weeks. Isn't that amazing? Another study where employees at a high-tech firm meditated a few minutes a day over a few weeks produced even more dramatic results. And he said just 2 months' practice among rank amateurs led to a systematic change in both the brain as well as the immune system in more positive directions. For example, they developed more antibodies to the flu virus than did their colleagues who did not meditate or pray.
Wow.
Now, I think this is fantastic. And one of the things I know, though, in studying my faith tradition, religious science, is that you're going to find what you're looking for, right? I mean, you go on the internet right now and you put in any question that you want in Google or whatever your search engine is, and you will find the pros and the cons of everything. Everything. I mean, if you believe that bacon is bad for you to eat, you will find a numerous amount of reports about how terrible bacon is for your body. You will also find chocolate bacon, and I mean, that was surprising. And all kinds of things about how some fat is good for your body. So no matter what it is that you want to find, you will find. And this is something that Dr. Holmes taught us a long time ago in the Science of Mind. What you focus on is what you're going to experience in your life. So when I looked at these studies that they're doing, these scientists are doing on the brain, it came back to me one of the base spiritual laws that Buddha taught and Jesus taught and many of the masters and saints and sages have taught. Very simply, it is done unto us as we believe. It's done unto us as we believe. So that if I believe that I can pray and it will have an effect on my body, it will. If I believe that I can pray and it'll have an effect on your body, it will. It's done unto us as we believe. Dr. Holmes says, we believe in the control of conditions with the power of our mind. And you know what? When I first got into this teaching, I latched onto that. And then managed to prove it over and over again. In fact, even moved to a place, to an island, and was able to study with an amazing Hawaiian family who studied the Huna and the esoteric teachings of Hawaii and knew that they could control the weather. They could control the weather. So all the weddings that I did in Hawaii, where it rains every 15 minutes or so, all the weddings that I did, when the bride and groom would come to me and we would talk about what they wanted their wedding to be like, one of them invariably would say, well, and I hope it doesn't rain. Because, all the weddings in Hawaii are outside. And I said, well, let's order that right now. It's not going to rain. And invariably, it might rain a little bit, and then the people would start gathering, the service would start, no rain, no rain. Maybe even a beautiful rainbow that, of course, would just thrill everyone's hearts. And then they would go off to the reception, rain. I thought, I control conditions with the power of my mind.
Yes.
Now, it's not an easy thing to remember. It's not an easy thing to remember. In fact, we get so mesmerized by the media. As I am getting older, I realize how much of the media is aimed toward you are sick, you don't weigh the right weight, you're not rich enough. The media is aimed toward fear. fear of not being enough. It's feeding on a base fear that so many of us have, that we're not enough. And so then we try to buy the right labels, or we try to eat the right foods, or we try to drive the right cars, or whatever it is, so that we can feel like we're enough. So constantly, we have to stand at the doorway of our consciousness and open ourselves up to having a deeper experience with the divine, and we do this through prayer and meditation. I believe this is almost the only way that you can do it, is you have to have a direct experience of the divine through those tools that we have in order to use it, believe it, field of creative potentiality that's just waiting for you to speak your word into it, and then it wants to serve you through that word. There's only one. Which means that if there's only one, then God and I are one. Because God doesn't, this energy field that's absolutely everywhere, doesn't, fill up the whole space except for this one, right? There's no way you could cut out a space for you to be where God is not. So this energy is within you. God and I are one. Everything that I know in my consciousness about the divine is also about me as well. It's true about me as well. All there is God. God and I are one. So then the third step, this realization step. Oh, by the way, the first one is called recognition. That's God. God. All there is God. Unification is God and I are one. Realization is the third step, the one where we speak our word for what we want. And you can speak your word for absolutely anything. It doesn't matter. Absolutely anything. But what you're really doing is speaking your word for the consciousness of the thing that you desire. Because remember, I said consciousness rules. Consciousness is what is here. So whatever it is, so let's say somebody tell me something that they want to have. Well, we talked about the body, sculpting your brain or having a healthy body, let's say. So let's use health. Let's say we're getting a cold, and we realize that we're, feeling the little symptoms. Our sinuses are starting to feel a little impacted. Whatever that your cold symptoms are, you're starting to feel those, and you decide, no, I don't want to have this. And you decide that you want to experience health. So in this place of realization, you might say something about recognizing that in this infinite field of creative potentiality, there is a divine pattern of health. That health is natural for us. And you might move into that space then saying those words, and then declare that your body, I love this statement, every cell and atom of my body is happy and healthy. Every cell of my body is happy and healthy. The more I say that, the more I'm sending out neural peptides across the areas of my brain, and I'm creating new grooves that instead of feeling like it's possible for me to be sick, it will be possible for me to be healthy. I'm creating the consciousness of health in my body. So in this third step, you say and allow yourself to feel whatever it is that brings you to that place of recognition that yes, health is my divine nature. Health is really who I am. The fourth step, the gratitude step, that is not thanking some entity outside of us for making this come true, so to speak. Is being grateful that you have the ability to change your thinking and change your life. It's being grateful that you have the ability to set up the thoughts and feelings in your consciousness that will then resculpt your brain, as scientists are proving can happen, so that you then are healthy. It's being grateful for knowing that you live in a healthy body. And then the last step is release. Now, release normally sounds like I release these words into the law of mind, and so it is. Now, this is one of the things that Ernest Holmes set up, was the law of mind, which is basically saying, I'm taking these ideas deep within my subjective, or my subconscious, if you want, mind. I'm taking them deep within me. I'm embodying them. I'm knowing that they are my truth, and I'm letting go. And I'm letting the universal energies, this divine field that I'm living in, breathing in, I'm letting it work for me, bringing to me those things that I need for my word to be true. What happens so many times, though, is we do this beautiful prayer, the recognition, unification, realization, thanksgiving, and release. We do this beautiful prayer, and we'll get up from the prayer and we think, well, maybe I better go take a pill. Or maybe, I hope this works. And the thing that Jesus taught us was that we're praying without ceasing. We're praying all the time. We can do a specific prayer for specific things, but everything we're thinking about, everything that we're telling ourselves, everything that we're telling each other, all the stories that we're constantly repeating are also considered prayers. Because the trick here is, in this dimension, and probably all the other ones as well, is what we contemplate, we become. What we focus on, we get to experience. What was that phrase? Where the attention goes, the energy flows. Right? So if I'm focusing on being sick, even though I've done this magnificent prayer, I'm going to experience some sort of illness. If I'm focusing on not having enough money, even though I've done a magnificent prayer for prosperity, I will still experience some sort of lack in my life. So not only is it important for us to do prayer and meditation and have that deeper experience of the divine, it's also important for us to pay attention to our everyday thoughts and feelings, because it's consciousness that rules. So ask yourself, what am I thinking about? The Course in Miracles, if you followed along in the Course in Miracles in the textbook, one of the processes right in the beginning is every hour. This is when we used to have watches that would beep on the hour if you set them, right? Every hour, when that watch beeps, ask yourself, what am I thinking right now? What am I feeling right now? Because that's how we're really creating our experience. So scientists can continue to do their wonderful research and prove what we've known all along. And I think it's wonderful that, now religious science has scientific facts and proof that this stuff works. I know for us that as we get into a prayer practice, which I believe is really important for each one of us, a daily prayer practice, that the practice then becomes not about getting anything. We no longer treat for money or things or mates or whatever. We treat for having that experience of the divine. We treat for knowing that this is the body of God. This is the body of God. And as we realize that, all those things that we used to treat for come automatically. As you start knowing who you are at a deep spiritual level, you'll always be supported. You'll always be nurtured. You'll always be guided. So let yourself allow that deep connection to come in. And I'm going to end this part with a prayer, and then anybody that has any questions will do that, okay? Or comments, etc. So let yourself take a breath. I recognize that God is absolutely the only thing there is. I recognize that God is this amazingly infinite field of creative potentiality. It is an energy that is the life force of all things. Even these things that we consider inanimate, they are still the energy of the divine. Everything is God. There is nothing but God. And I know that in God there is love and law. There is light. There is power. There is wisdom. There is joy. There is all things that we could possibly imagine that our heart desires to experience. And so I celebrate my conscious awareness of this truth, that all there is God. And as I celebrate this, I remember that this is what I am. That if all there is the divine, this energy, then the energy that is running through my body, that has made up every cell and atom of my being, that is my bones and my muscles and my blood, that is my thoughts, my feelings, my hearing, my taste, that is everything, this too is God. And I let myself feel that. God. And right now, knowing this truth, that all there is God, and that God and I are one, and that all the qualities that God is, I have, I now allow myself to speak my word for all of us. Knowing that whatever problem or challenge we might have come in here with, whatever challenge we've been experiencing, that there is that within us that loves us so much that it wants us to drop those old stories and stand proudly in the light of our being. There is that within us that is moving us forward along this wonderful spiritual path called life. And in everything, it says, look at me, remember me, know who I am at a deeper level, because I am who you are. So I know for each one of us that those challenges that we've been experiencing, we can let go of, because we can take our attention off of them and put them on what we desire. And I know that what our soul desires, our heart desires, is to feel loved. That is the basic desire of all humanity, to feel loved. And I know that this is what God is. This divine energy is love itself. And it loves us so much that it became life, to live as us, through us. So we feel the love. And love is the greatest healing agent in the universe. As we feel the love, everything that is unlike it drains away. And from this point on, I know that we focus on good things. We put our attention on the things that give our hearts pleasure. We put our attention on the good aspects of our life. That we're breathing, that we're here, living in this country, that we're experiencing a freedom that is unlike anything I could have imagined. A spiritual freedom. A freedom of knowing the truth of our being. And this is good, very good. And I am so grateful to know these things. I'm so grateful to be able to share these truths, knowing that for each one of us, we take them into ourselves at the level that we desire to take them. We take them, and as they're filtered through our stories, as they're filtered through our cultural training, as they're filtered through us, I know that the gold, that purity of being, moves all of that and resides now within us. Radiant light, radiant love, and brings us joy. How grateful I am to know this. And now I release these words into the law of mind, knowing that they are subjectified, knowing that for each one of us they are going to have an effect in some way. And I celebrate them with every fiber of my being, because I know it's all God. And so it is.
And so it is.
So what did that feel like? Or what questions might you have? Yes, John?
I was taught early on, and then I came across a writing by Dr. Ernest Holmes.
Yes?
What you think about, you bring about.
Good one. Yes, absolutely. What you think about, you bring about. Makes us really have to take responsibility for our minds, right? Definitely. Yes, Nancy.
There was a song that we used to sing in one of the spiritual centers called Our Thoughts Are Prayers. And I loved that song, and it kept going through my head as you were speaking. So I'd love to be able to sing it at some point in time, because I imbued it, I really imbibed it, not imbued it, but I
Or embodied it.
embodied it, and I really feel that song really said a lot for this concept.
Yeah. You know what, when I'm thinking about this now, I think that, and what came to me when I was doing the prayer, is the most important thing is belief.
Is what?
Belief.
Believe.
And I heard Thomas's voice to Jesus say something about, I can't exactly remember the exact biblical quotation, but he wanted Jesus to show him even though he didn't believe. He had to touch the wounds, remember, so that he would believe. And so what I know, in fact, what I have done in my life many times, is that when I've worked through something and I've come out the other end, I journal about it so that I can remind myself later, oh, hey, it worked here, so it's got to work here. If it works then, it'll work now. Because one of the things I know about belief is that you can't just believe, you can't just swallow something wholeheartedly, without experimenting with it, playing with it. So for instance, here's some homework. I want you to think for a moment about butterflies. There's such a great analogy or metaphor for coming out of the cocoon of, I think of the cocoon of the media and all the things, the collective consciousness that tries to tell us we're not enough. And we break through that and we come out and we have these beautiful wings and we can fly freely. Now, it's not butterfly season now, is it? In fact, it's too cold for butterflies. But I want you to watch for butterflies this week. You might see them on a card, or on the television, or in a magazine, or somebody will have a scarf with butterflies on it, or you'll see some in your own garden. But I want you to recognize that you've said to the universe, I want to see butterflies, and the universe is going to show you a lot of them.
Especially on Pinterest.
Especially on Pinterest, yes. Now, I don't want you to go looking for them. I want you to just notice when they're in your experience this week. This will help you begin to believe. Begin to believe. Yes, Don?
One of the things that excited me during that prayer was every time you mentioned one of those words, that religious science talks about as the 7 aspects of God. Anytime you would say joy, it would be like, oh yeah. It's like, oh, okay, that really resonates deeply. And when you would say peace, it's like, yeah, that's right. That's who I really am. It's like every one of those 7 words. So when I do my treatments, my morning treatments, I usually base it on those 7 words and try to do a little different description of each of those words or a different experience of each of those words.
Great. And I love your acronym you post on Facebook for
Thank you.
peace. I think they're wonderful. You keep putting new ones up and I'm going, I copy them. I have a little acronym file for the peace word that you do. That's, I think, is good.
Peace is practice, exercising authority to change everything.
Yes. And we haven't. There is that within us that has given us the authority to change our thinking and lives. And I'm so grateful for that. And thank you for listening to me this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.